Hello and welcome to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, your weekly dose of the top pro-life news and issues, all from a Catholic perspective. I'm Catherine Hadro in our Washington, D.C. studio. Thanks for joining us the week of the 2019 March for Life. In this week's show, Rock and Roe? You'll never believe this. We speak out against an insulting pro-abortion concert. We are joined by the president of the March for Life to get the details behind the year's largest pro-life event. And this.
It is an objective, empirical, and contemporary scientific fact of the biological science of human embryology.
We look at the scientific reality as to when life begins. But first, our top story, pro-lifers prepare to convene in Washington, D.C. for the 46th annual March for Life. The March for Life says neither rain, snow, not even a government shutdown will stop this year's event. At least tens of thousands of pro-lifers are expected to attend the rally on the National Mall and then march to the Supreme Court. It's a peaceful protest to the 1973 Supreme Court decision Roe v. Wade, which legalized abortion nationwide. This year's March for Life is taking place just weeks after a pro-abortion majority took control of the U.S. House of Representatives and passed a funding bill that repealed the Protecting Life and Global Health Assistance policy. That pro-life policy bans foreign aid from going to non-governmental organizations that promote or pay for abortion procedures. Joining us now is House Minority Whip Representative Steve Scalise of Louisiana. Congressman, thank you for joining us.
Great to be with you. Thanks.
This effort by Speaker Pelosi and House Democrats to repeal the Mexico City policy is one of the first acts by leadership in a Democratic House. What's your response to this vote?
Well, it's incredibly disturbing to see that on literally their first week in the majority, Nancy Pelosi is trying to reverse the Mexico City policy and let taxpayer money go to foreign entities who provide abortion. It's wrong. That's something we fought for decades. Ronald Reagan, obviously, is the one who established that policy in Mexico City, and it's an important policy that's helped strengthen the morality of the United States when we speak with moral clarity all around the world. We need to maintain it, and we will.
As Republican leadership in the House, what do you expect the next 2 years to look like for you as you continue to fight for the pro-life cause?
Well, it's going to be a battle, and I think everybody that's watching understands. They remember what Nancy Pelosi did when she was Speaker back from 2006 to 2010. If you look at her majority today, it's much more liberal and far left and more pro-abortion than the majority she had then. And so it's going to be a bigger battle, but we're up to the challenge. And the most important thing is to make sure that we don't lose any ground. We have made some historic and important wins over the last few decades to advance the cause of life, to stand up for the moral values that this country was based upon. And we're not going to relent. And President Trump, by the way, is there with us every step of the way. Even if a bill gets to his desk, which I doubt seriously any will, that would reverse any of our pro-life gains, President Trump would veto that. And we will be able to sustain any veto so that we maintain the pro-life wins we've achieved over the years.
This funding bill passed by the Democrats also included funding for Planned Parenthood. Congressman, would you ever vote for a funding bill that funds abortion? No,
and in fact, I helped put the coalition together 2 years ago when we passed our repeal and replace of Obamacare. In that bill, we were able to put a provision in that fully defunds Planned Parenthood completely, not just on the discretionary side, but especially in Medicaid. Medicaid is the program that funds a lot of the Planned Parenthood initiatives. We completely defunded that in our repeal and replace bill. It failed by one vote in the Senate, but it shows the House had a willingness in the last majority to pass that kind of legislation and take those votes. While Nancy Pelosi might want to give them more money, we will battle every step of the way and stop that from happening.
Congressman, I want to turn now to the March for Life. The world's largest pro-life event is set to take place in Washington. Why is the March for Life important to you personally?
For me, it's just so exciting and inspiring to see young kids from all around the country come to Washington to stand up for life. If you watch the media, they would try to portray young people as all pro-choice and kind of a different value set. And then you meet these young kids. I know from my state of Louisiana, we have over 1,500 young kids that are coming up, mostly high school age or early college, coming up to Washington to stand up for life. And a lot of times they come up here and it's snowing and it's cold, and they're out there on the mall just showing how strong their commitment is to the values that life represents. And so for me, we're here in the battle every day, but to see people from all around the country, it just shows that this is a cause that is not just something that's part of a generational fight, but the next generation is part of that fight as well. And we're ultimately going to win. I'm so encouraged to see what's happening on the Supreme Court. President Trump has done a wonderful job in putting Neil Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh on the bench. I really think in some time, in our lifetime, we're going to see a reversal of Roe versus Wade and allow the true values of life to ultimately prevail.
It really is an exciting time for the pro-life movement. And speaking of your pro-life views, Congressman, how does your Catholic faith inform your views?
Well, my Catholic faith had a strong role and plays a strong role because these are my values. I was brought up with a strong Catholic upbringing. Look, in Louisiana, our jurisdictions are called parishes, not counties, named after the church parishes. So, it shows you that value set is established from an early age, and I think it's important. We do that, my wife and I do that with our kids, and I think everybody ought to instill those values in their children from an early age, and hopefully it sustains them through their life.
And finally, one of the added benefits of having the March for Life in Washington, D.C. is that potential for conversation with lawmakers. So as a lawmaker yourself, what kind of impact do these conversations with pro-lifers have on you? Does it make a difference?
I think it does show in a very visual way that the next generation, our young kids, have a large number of people that really do stand up for the values of life. We've got to continue to spread the message. Not everybody believes in the things that we believe in, and there are some people on the fence in this battle. And I think them seeing thousands of young people from their home states saying, we're young people, we're high school students, college students, and we believe in life. We want to see policies, laws that actually represent those values, like the Pain Capable Bill, which I'm a co-sponsor of, like making permanent the Hyde Amendment, which right now is a value set that since Henry Hyde came to Congress, we were able to put in appropriations bills. We need to make that permanent law so we don't have to renew it every year, that it's actually foundational law. I'm a co-sponsor of that bill. Getting those bills passed is going to take a broader coalition. And so the more young people can come up from all around the country and go meet not only with those of us that are fighting in the battle, but to get more people in Congress to agree with our values and vote for those values, to put more of those strong policies into law. It helps tremendously.
That is great to hear. Representative Steve Scalise, the House Minority Whip, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. God bless.
Chuck Donovan is the president of the Charlotte Lozier Institute. He joins us now in studio. Thanks for being here with us.
Great to be here, Catherine.
First off, can you speak to Congressman Scalise's leadership for the pro-life movement within the House right now? How important is his role?
Oh, he's absolutely critical. No one has a better understanding of the value of life after what the congressman went through, recovering from a near mortal assault here in the Capitol. But he has fought for life as long as he's been in the Congress. He's in the leadership. He has a lot to say about what gets scheduled, but now he'll be on defense. But we couldn't have a better defender.
From your expertise, what do you expect these next 2 years to look like with a pro-abortion majority?
Well, we've already seen it. The congressman discussed the Mexico City policy in the very first bill that the Democratic majority in the House offered. They repealed the pro-life policy protecting the United States from funding abortion overseas. I think it's going to be heavy seas. I think we're going to have multiple assaults on existing pro-life policies. We're going to have to be on our toes. The public's going to have to let the Congress know to stand fast and give Steve Scalise and his partners max support.
Absolutely. I'd also like to get your reaction to a recent message from the new Planned Parenthood president. Dr. Leanna Wen recently posted on Twitter, in part, "Our core mission is providing, protecting, and expanding access to abortion." Core mission. Is this a new messaging strategy for Planned Parenthood?
I think it's the same reality, but it's a new emphasis. And what it is sort of an in-your-face statement that the Congress may want to and Planned Parenthood's Title X funding or something else in the funding realm, but they're actually going to go deeper into abortion, and the truth is that is exactly what they've done. They control about 35 to 40% of the U.S. market, if you can use that phrase, for abortion, and they're going to push abortion and raise the numbers. They're not getting the message that Hillary Clinton said a long time ago about making abortion rare. They want to make it common.
We're seeing this new Planned Parenthood president, Dr. Leanna Wen, frequently tout science and medicine. She is a medical doctor, but can you speak to how pro-life is pro-science, which is this year's March for Life theme? Well, absolutely. The March for Life has, to my mind, chosen the best theme possible. We know that life begins at conception. We know that medical science is making a perinatal revolution where more and more babies at mid-pregnancy are getting treatments and therapies. This is where the most exciting medicine is taking place. And the basic facts haven't changed. The unborn child is a unique human being with a DNA footprint all of its own. And of course, we believe, too, it was created in the image and likeness of God. It's precious. That's the ultimate science. Science is about truth. And the truth, I think, will prevail on the life issue. I'm glad the March is proclaiming it. Absolutely. And this is the 46th annual March for Life. Why in 2019 is the March for Life still so important? Well, it's so important, as Congressman Scalise said, it's a focal point. It's also a focal point for the next generation. They are coming out in ever greater numbers with ever higher enthusiasm. At the Lozier Institute, we are getting record numbers of internship applications. We have a great, the people we turn away breaks my heart because we love to accommodate them all. But I think the future looks pro-life, it looks young, it looks fresh, it looks free, and it's free for life. And I couldn't be happier with where we're headed. Absolutely. Chuck Donovan, president of the Charlotte Lozier Institute, thanks for being with us. My pleasure, Catherine. The U.S. House of Representatives recently voted on a government funding bill to end the shutdown and reopen the government. But included in this bill by the pro-abortion Democratic majority was a poison pill, a measure to completely repeal the Trump administration's Protecting Life and Global Health Assistance policy. This is the policy that ensures not one penny of taxpayer funds will fund overseas organizations that promote or commit abortions. Also included in this funding bill was funding for Planned Parenthood, whose president recently stated that abortion is core to their mission. We need to let our U.S. representatives know that we do not want to fund abortions, which brings us to this week's call to action. Go to prolifeweekly.com. Again, go to prolifeweekly.com. Here, you can fill out a form that will match you to your member of Congress. You will be able to find out how they voted on this pro-abortion funding bill. Our system will then provide you with a pre-written message that you can send to your U.S. representative to let them know what you think of their vote. Of course, you can make any edits you wish to make the message your own. If your member voted in favor of this pro-abortion bill, the letter will condemn that action. If your member voted against it, the letter will send a message of support. Again, the funding bill passed by the U.S. House funds Planned Parenthood and repeals a major pro-life policy. Make sure your U.S. representative knows where you stand on the pro-life issue and that you do not want any dollars going to abortion. Send your letter at prolifeweekly.com. Back now to our top story in the 2019 March for Life in Washington, D.C. We are joined now by the president of the March for Life Education and Defense Fund, Jeanne Mancini. Jeanne, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Catherine.
The 46th annual March for Life has arrived. First off, did the government shutdown ever threaten this march?
No. So we've marched 46 years, and we've marched in blizzards. Of course, you'll remember 3 years ago, a terrible blizzard that shut down the city, and the city police, threatened to shut us down. No, there hasn't ever been thought that there wouldn't be a 46th annual March for Life.
The march will always go on.
We're marching for the human rights abuse of abortion. We absolutely have to march. It's not because of government entities that we're marching. It's because of this human rights abuse, and they just kind of give us the structure by which we're protected.
Excellent. Tell us how you decided on this year's theme, unique from day one, pro-life is pro-science.
So every year we consider choosing the theme sort of a beautiful opportunity to educate about the most cutting edge needs or the most pressing needs in building a culture of life. So for example, in past years, we've had being a birth mother as a noble decision, adoption. In the election year, we had pro-life as pro-woman because we knew that there would be so many confusing messages. So this year we thought with so many advances in science and technology and being able to see the humanity of the child at earlier and earlier stages, that a pro-life is pro-science theme was perfect. And also there's so much confusion over sort of the ethics of research. The human person should never be the subject of experimentation so that they're exploited. They always, science needs to be at the service of life. And we wanted to be really clear and teach a little bit about that.
Absolutely, that's beautiful. The March for Life is one day out of the year, but Jeannie, can you give us a glimpse into all of the work that goes behind it?
Yeah, so we work very hard all year round, but these past few months and these past few days and weeks are just crazy. So we have an amazing, small but incredible staff. They work so hard. In terms of preparation, we start a year in advance for the next year's March. And just the most intense time are the few months leading ahead, and then of course the few weeks and the few days. So it's quite a production.
There are so many excellent pro-life leaders that we have in the United States and in the world. How did you decide on this year's lineup of pro-life speakers?
Oh, it's always really hard. We usually, it's very much related to the theme, and then if there are any major things happening, politically or what have you. Some of the speakers that I'm really excited about, or I guess you could say a certain segment, is our congressional lineup this year. Of course, we know that really sadly that Democrats have not been as pro-life sort of broadly and in terms of leadership. In recent years, we've seen their platform go more and more extreme, really advocating for abortion until birth and paid for by our tax dollars. So we tried really, really hard to get pro-life Democrats to show how important that is. And we were successful. So we actually, for the first time ever, have an equal lineup of Republicans and Democrats speaking at the March for Life.
Excellent. The pro-life issue should be a bipartisan issue.
Absolutely should be. Isn't, but this is what we can do at the March for Life to make it more so.
We hope that so many of our viewers can come and travel to Washington, D.C. for the March for Life. But for our viewers who are not able to be here, how do you encourage them to still be involved and participate?
Great question. Check out our website, marchforlife.org, and be willing to use the social media hashtag #WhyWeMarch. So that's our main hashtag, and we try to get it to trend around the world so that people can hear different stories. So Why We March is essentially people telling their stories about why they're pro-life. It might be showing a picture of a sister with Down syndrome. It might be telling the story of a mother choosing life with a very difficult pregnancy. It might be an adoption story. It might be the story, sadly, of someone who regretted being involved in abortion. But people telling their stories using that hashtag #WhyWeMarch is so powerful, and it has a worldwide witness, so to speak.
You never know how that's going to reach a person,
it's
that
so
message.
Yeah.
Finally, the day after the March for Life is the next Women's March. Jeannie, can you just compare those two events for us, the March for Life and the Women's March?
Yeah, well, in a way, there's really no comparison because, of course, the March for Life has gone on for 46 years. We're the single largest annual human rights abuse demonstration worldwide every year. And we're very grassroots. We have a modest staff, a very modest budget. We're also very youthful. If you were going to compare the two, we're much younger, sort of generationally, than the Women's March. And we're also very positive. We're not a violent march, and those are the only folks we don't let in are people who are pro-violence. Sadly, you'll remember from the Women's March, there were all sorts of threats to blow up, the White House and different things from the stage. So you'll never hear from that from a marcher. Very positive, very peaceful driven. So in some ways there's no comparison, but the comparison is made quite a bit.
And we'll see how that is portrayed in the media as well this year.
Yes.
Jeanne Mancini, president of the March for Life, thank you for being here this week.
Well, thanks for having me.
When we come back.
No high school student graduates without knowing that H2O is water. But they can graduate without knowing that they begin as a single-cell human being at the beginning of the process of fertilization.
We look at how pro-life is pro-science. Stay tuned as EWTN Pro-Life Weekly continues after this break. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Catherine Hadro. A pro-abortion group in Staten Island, New York held a, get this, Rock N Roe, as in Roe v. Wade, concert to benefit Planned Parenthood this week. That's this week's Speak Out segment. The organizers, Move Forward Staten Island, described the event as a benefit concert for itself and for a Staten Island Planned Parenthood facility because they claim access to abortion is, quote, in jeopardy. The group arranged for a handful of local bands to perform and encouraged attendees to also sign up for this week's Women's March. This Rocking for Roe concert strikes all of the wrong chords. The Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision is an ugly stain on human history. It was when, on January 22nd of 1973, 7 men ruled to legalize abortion nationwide. An estimated 61 million unborn lives have been killed since that ruling 46 years ago. Roe is not something to celebrate. It is instead something we all must peacefully protest. And we'll see just that this week at the March for Life. Every year since Roe v. Wade, the pro-life movement has shown up to march in opposition to the violence of abortion. Our consistent, peaceful, prayerful witness continues to win hearts and minds, and the march continues to grow in size and impact. We should pray for an end to abortion, and that our pro-life witness will inspire those who rock for Roe to instead march for life. Remember, there is something you can do to counter today's culture of death. Follow this week's call to action. Go to prolifeweekly.com to find out how your U.S. representative voted on the pro-abortion funding bill and send your member a letter. This year's March for Life theme is unique from day one. Pro-life is pro-science. Often, the very people who champion science turn a blind eye when it comes to the scientific reality behind when life begins. For this week's Pro-Life Focus, we take a look at a group hoping to change that. Based on how so many influential people answer the question today, you might think when human life begins is some unsolved mystery.
At what point does a baby get human rights, in your view?
Answering that question with specificity, is above my pay grade.
If you can hear the heartbeat of this thing, this fetus, what is it? Is it just a piece of tissue, or is it a separate human being?
I think that's up to each individual to decide what they believe.
When a human being begins to exist is not a mystery or a scientific theory or a subjective, political, religious, or personal matter. It is an objective, empirical, and contemporary scientific fact of the biological science of human embryology.
Business professional Brooke Stanton was frustrated with science denial when it came to the human life issue. So she, along with co-founder Christiane West, launched Contend Projects, a secular, nonpartisan science education nonprofit.
We are working to make the basic science about when a human being begins to exist simple and accessible for everyone.
These women think everyone should know this basic scientific fact.
A new human being, a new, whole, individual, living human being begins to exist at the beginning of the process of fertilization, at first contact between the sperm and the oocyte. When these two mere cells make first contact, immediately, specifically, human enzymes and proteins, whole human organism enzymes and proteins, not sperm and oocyte enzymes and proteins, are produced. And a new single-cell human being with his or her own new unique DNA immediately begins to exist.
As it turns out, the start of human life has been well documented over 100 years, and in 1942 instituted as a scientific fact by a secular government agency that's part of the National Institutes of Health. It's come to be known as the Carnegie stages of human embryonic development.
It is an empirical scientific fact that a new single-cell human being is an actual human being, not a possible human being or a potential human being.
Contend Projects has developed a series of tools to introduce this scientific fact into the mainstream. One way is through their website, contendprojects.org, which is filled with videos and information. It also has a free science quiz, so you can gauge how much you know about human embryology. And you don't have to be an expert to give it a try, as yours truly can clearly demonstrate. First contact is when the sperm cell learn how to pronounce that, oocyte cell together are transformed into a new human being, human organism. I'm gonna guess yes. Okay, all right. How many periods of human development occur before a human being is born? I'm just gonna press, and this is probably, might be embarrassing, I'm saying 1.
It's okay. Oops.
2, I'm learning. There are 2 periods of human development before birth, the embryonic period and the fetal period. Okay, I can know science.
There you go.
Exactly.
Everybody should.
Contend Projects also places a major emphasis on school outreach.
A lot of the misinformation is now targeting schools, and people spreading misinformation are in our schools, they're in the Girl Scouts, and we need to be there as well.
The science nonprofit developed a 60-minute human embryology lesson geared towards students in 7th through 10th grade.
It's really critical because when you look at chemistry class, every chemistry class has the periodic table. No high school student graduates without knowing that H2O is water. But they can graduate without knowing that they begin as a single-cell human being at the beginning of the process of fertilization.
And for the younger minds, Contend Projects has created a book for grades 3 through 6.
This book is called You Used to Be Much Smaller, But You Were Still You. If you can talk, if you can walk, if you can dance, or even if you aren't born yet, you are a human being.
It talks to kids about how if you are a human fetus, you're a human being. If you're a human embryo, you're a human being. Just as much as a toddler is a human being, just as much as an elderly person is a human being.
From the classroom to the courtroom, Contend Projects wants to give our world a science lesson on the most important cause.
The science exists, and we really just need to start using the science as the starting point, because as you know, a small error in the beginning leads to a multitude of errors in the end.
Remember to turn to EWTN for all of your March for Life and pro-life coverage, and go to marchforlife.org for all of the event details. That does it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, but until next time, I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at prolifeweekly@ewtn.com or like my public page on Facebook. Just look for Catherine Hadro. Remember, life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.